This morning, the committee meets to consider the nomination of retired Lieutenant General Dan Caine for the position of Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Caine has a tremendous responsibility before him. I believe President Trump has made an excellent choice in selecting him to meet the challenges. So I thank General Caine for his willingness to serve our country, especially in this hour of need. We live in the most dangerous national security moment since World War II. An axis of aggressors led by the Chinese Communist Party and Vladimir Putin's Russia means us harm. This axis does not want this century to be an American-led century or a freedom-led century. Our adversaries have started 2 wars against Ukraine and Israel. They threaten to open a 3rd front against Taiwan. We must restore peace, and we can do that only through strength. Since his nomination was announced, some people have written that General Caine is unqualified. They point out that he has not served as a combatant commander, as a service chief, or as a vice chairman, roles which are contemplated in 10 U.S.C. 152. I would suggest these same people read or reread the Goldwater-Nichols Act of 1986. Those who read that law and then read General Caine's resume will see that the architects of that legislation would conclude that their reforms were successful. The driving force behind Goldwater-Nichols was to inspire and in some cases require jointness. So let's talk about jointness with regard to Lieutenant General Caine. They believe that when our military services work together, those services are greater than the sum of their parts. General Caine agrees, and his record reflects that. He began his career as an Air Force fighter pilot in 1992. By the time he was done, General Caine had operated in every domain, and he had developed relationships with every service. That would not have been true 40 years ago. General Caine flew and commanded aircraft. But he's also worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, having helped in the wake of Hurricane Katrina in the midst of a bird flu outbreak. At the White House, General Caine wrote early homeland security strategies. He deployed and commanded repeatedly to Iraq and Syria, serving within various special operations forces units. He ran our most secretive programs for all military services. General Caine worked extensively as the CIA's senior military officer, again, collaborating with every military service and combatant command. It's difficult to imagine a better joint and interagency background for a nominee of this position. Our threat environment is complex, and General Caine understands how the services can work together to meet today's dangers. We have much work to do, as this committee knows. We need to grow our defense budget. We need to reform the Pentagon's processes drastically. If confirmed, General Caine would play a significant role in providing military advice to the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States on both of those topics. In particular, the chairman plays a significant role in the requirements process. I hope he will make a priority to modernize this critical aspect. The statutory role of the chairman may be limited, but the position is explicitly the voice of the combatant commanders. That voice matters because the commanders are largely absent from our requirements and budgeting processes. The chairman can and should also be an advocate for a more agile planning process, one that considers the problems, and I'm going to use 2 big words here, the problems of simultaneity and protracted warfare. I guess that's 3 big words and 2 big terms. These are technical terms for fairly straightforward facts. First, that our adversaries are likely to act against us in a coordinated fashion, simultaneity. And secondly, that once that war breaks out, it tends to take on a life of its own, protracted warfare. Lastly, a chairman is responsible to deliver a serious, honest chairman's risk assessment to this committee as soon as possible. I look forward to General Caine's thoughts on each of these points. Based on my conversations with the nominee and based on his actions in uniform, I'm confident that General Caine will give President Trump his best military advice. He will do so without bias, as he's required to do. He would not consider whether the president may like or dislike that advice. That's exactly what a United States president deserves. I'm convinced that General Caine sees this role as absolutely nonpartisan. We can argue politics up here on this dais, but I expect General Caine to stay out of it, no matter the subject. I thank the nominee for his service and for appearing today, and I turn now to my friend and colleague, Ranking Member Reed, for his opening remarks.